let's have a good, clean fight. Protect yourself at all time. Obey my command at all time. Touch gloves.
Gamboa has alternately dazzled and maybe bored is too strong a word, but let's just say not dazzled. This is only his 4th fight in almost 3 years, and with an undefeated, formerly top amateur. To look dazzling here is a tall order, but that's what we ask in boxing of our super fighters, and that's what it looks like at times Gamboa can become.
Well, I think it's been difficult to figure out exactly how to define him in the ring. Is he a boxer? Is he a boxer puncher? Is he somebody who's just existing on his lightning speed, both foot speed and hand speed? He gave an eloquent explanation yesterday as to why he is not so easy to define as his fellow former Cuban stars Erislandy Lara and Guillermo Rigondeaux, both of them brilliant, pure counterpunchers. As he said to us, I'm the guy who's trying to master all 3 kinds of fighting: inside, outside, and in the middle range. There aren't many people who try to do it. I'm still in the learning process of trying to master all 3, but when I get there, I'll be a better fighter than the other guys because I won't be doing only one thing. Andre, what'd you think of all that?
Well, I think we got to remember that Gamboa has 200 to 300 amateur fights. You don't get that Cuban system and that amateur style and that amateur mentality out of your system overnight. And even though he's been a pro for some time now, he's still trying to identify himself as a professional.
Gamboa has always fought with more urgency than Rigondeaux or Lara. And that's why people see more of a commercial upside for him.
And he sees that too. He believes that he can build an audience in a way that the other 2 Cuban stars cannot because of their extremely disciplined counterpunching stay-back styles. He also fights with more aggression in addition to the more urgency, right?
That's right, and here we see a kind of typical feel-out round.
You saw Darleys Perez testing the right hand over the top, his knockout shot. And the one thing in the fight which experts believe Gamboa may have to worry about, there's a quick left hook counter from Perez after Gamboa came in.
It'll be interesting to see what type of punch Gamboa can take from a true lightweight tonight. Perez already landing 2 good shots early in this 1st round.
I think Perez has done enough already to let Gamboa know that this is a guy who knows how to handle himself with the deep amateur background, who he can't just impose his athleticism on.
And he presents the look of the bigger, longer guy, and certainly he does not look in any way nervous or overwhelmed by the event. He's been very composed since coming to the ring and establishing himself in the 1st minute of the fight.
This is Perez's round. He's controlled it.
And down he goes.
That's a knockdown. That's a knockdown.
The referee is ruling it a knockdown.
5.
And that's what
6,
we see from Gamboa.
7.
That quick.
8.
I guess it's not Perez's round anymore.
It can be Perez's round for 2 minutes and 59 seconds, and Gamboa has the kind of speed and power to make it a Gamboa round.
That's the sweet science.
You got to keep your hands up. He hit you behind the head. All right, breathe now, breathe now. You were winning that round. You were winning that round. You've got to react to go to the sides, all right? Go to the sides. And the same dosification, all right? The same thing you got to do. In and jab and go out.
Here we see the knockdown from Gamboa. He lands a glancing left and missed the right and the left. And I think that the feet may have been tangled up. It's hard to tell. No tangle up.
Gamboa threw the left with enough force to force Perez's right glove into his own head and knock him off balance.
I think you're right.
It was a low contact knockdown, that's for sure, after Perez had landed the cleaner punches through much of the round. CompuBox numbers in the 1st round, Gamboa out through Perez 40-20. Landed it at a lower connect percentage, but ultimately scored the knockdown that won him the round.
We'll see if that knockdown causes Perez to change his game plan.
Or Gamboa. Gamboa in the past has usually been vulnerable when he feels like he has his man hurt, might be able to take him out. That's when he tends to square up, as they say, and is susceptible to hard counters.
Perez doesn't seem as eager as he did in the first 2 minutes of the first round to open up. That left hook has something to do with that.
If you've been reading the build-up to the fight and watching promos here on HBO, and for weeks you've been expecting to see Darleys Perez, no S, well, rest assured that was our position too, until Perez revealed about 3 days ago that the name is Darleys, has an S on the end, that it has been confused over the years, that no one's ever been able to exactly get it right, that he didn't bother to correct anybody and walked around in the first few years of his career as Darleys Perez, when in fact it's Darleys. His promoter Gary Shaw came into fighter meeting yesterday before Darleys arrived and said, oh no, it's Darley. He doesn't need that S. He doesn't even care about it. Perez came into the room. We said, what's your name? He said Darleys with an S. T-A-R-L-Y-E-L-E-Y-S.
Gamboa starting to get into a rhythm right now, starting to feel good and let his shots go a little bit more.
And it looks like Darleys in response has gone from let me wait for Gamboa to make a mistake to let me apply some pressure here.
Right hand lands for Perez after Gamboa landed a double jab.
That was a good exchange of right hands in the middle of the ring.
Gamboa, for the most part, doesn't have a power jab. He has a setup jab. He kind of puts it out there, really looking to land the bigger shots behind the jab. Some of that amateur style coming out of Gamboa right
Yeah,
there.
we saw the hand feint, with the right glove going up into the air. Reminiscent of what Rigondeaux does with his hand feints. Quick left hook for Gamboa.
I think that's as much to get himself in rhythm as it is to distract his opponent. We see him fighting a little looser since he started doing that sort of stuff the last minute or so.
Next Saturday night, it's the premiere of The Dark Knight Rises. And immediately following the movie, it's Boxing After Dark. Mikey Garcia makes the first defense of his featherweight title belt against the always entertaining Juan Manuel Lopez.
It can't be the same thing. You got to switch it up. Also, when he goes to the ropes, remember, after you're in the ropes, you got to go jab up top and then with a straight shot to the body. And you're opening your legs too much. Your legs are too much to do the movement, all right? You've got to look for your distance. Too far. You're too far. You have no range, no power there. You got to think about those things. Let's go. Let's go.
There's the Gamboa family at ringside. Gamboa's brother standing up there to present himself. And that is Yuriorkis' baby boy in the lap of his mother. Yuriorkis Gamboa, of course, was coached by a variety of coaches in the Cuban amateur system. He has tried other professional trainers besides his father, but for the last couple of fights has decided that he's most comfortable with his father training him. Sometimes in a situation like that, when a guy chooses his father as the trainer, it says to me, he's really the trainer. He wants to be in charge of his own workouts and run his own schedule. Left hook lands for Perez.
The left hook got Gamboa's attention.
And Perez has been able to do that in each of the first 3 rounds so far.
Gamboa likes to fight harder when he gets hurt. That's why he came right back with that 3-punch combination. Nice sneaky left hook from Perez. I see him trying to set it up.
And you mentioned about Gamboa's temperament, Andre. I think, Jim, that's the difference between Gamboa on the one hand and Rigondeaux and Lara on the other, is when he gets hit, his true nature as a fighter comes out. I think it takes his discipline to stay outside, to stop from brawling. That's what he wants to do naturally.
Well, if we're going to buy a ticket to see him, we want to see him fight in his natural style as they come forward, entertain you, fight back kind of a guy. If he's going to have the best chance to win all of his fights, maybe that would be more like what Lara and Rigondeaux do. Well, but I don't think it's ever going to be that way.
If you're going to fight like Rigondeaux, it's best to be able to fight like Rigondeaux. In other words, in a totally elevated way. And I don't know if Gamboa or anyone other than Mayweather is really capable of fighting the way Rigondeaux does in that style.
Perez got in his sneaky left hook again, or was that a jab, Andre?
I think that was a jab, Jim. But just to touch on the point about Gamboa, good right hand from Gamboa right there. Gamboa has to have a healthy dose of both, because if he's too fan-friendly, he'll never get to that place that everybody thinks he can get to. So does he want to be a shooting star, or does he want to be a fixture in the sport for a very long time?
His amateur pedigree suggests he can be a fixture.
But as we all know, this is the pro game. Totally different business.
Yeah.
Gamboa landing punches with his hand speed advantage, exceptionally fast hands, of course, as he's able to double and triple up inside, landing more punches in these exchanges than Perez, who more often is looking to land one good shot.
Now, I don't think it's necessarily that Gamboa can't take a punch, but if you see some of the shots he's getting touched with now, they're flush shots. They're not grazing shots.
Why is he getting hit with them?
I just think it's just a lack of concentration in defense. He's more focused on his offense than he is his defense.
Now Perez feinting twice with the left before finally reaching out and at least making contact, though not big contact, with the left hook. There's 56. Promoter of Yuriorkis Gamboa, and to his right in the black t-shirt, Jean Pascal, former world light heavyweight champion who took the title from Chad Dawson here in Montreal, August of 2010, and then lost it to Bernard Hopkins, who lost it back to Dawson.
Don't despair. Don't look for just one punch. Work your hands to the body. Work your hands to the body. You're going to surprise him there, because you know he's coming with something else. 1, 2, then right with the swing also. But don't despair. Don't despair. You've got to look your range, your distance. You're moving your legs too much to catch him. You got to work fast and be explosive. Be careful when you're doing that defense. Be careful when you're coming out. Cover up. Cover up. Tight defense. Don't despair.
Gamboa's numbers on power shots in round 3. Gamboa 9 of 30. Perez exactly 1/3. 3 of 10. Marked demonstration of the difference in the way they fight. Steve Weisfeld is our ringside scorer here on Boxing After Dark. And Steve, how do you have it unofficially through 3?
After 3 rounds, I have it 30-26 for Gamboa. You know, Jim, the first round was interesting to score. You started with the premise, it's a 10-8 round because of the knockdown. And then you have to ask yourself, but for the knockdown, Perez win the round convincingly enough to bring it back to 10-9? I think the answer is no. I think it was relatively close. I kept it at 10-8. The second and third rounds, I thought Gamboa was busier. So after 3 rounds, I have Gamboa up by 4 points.
So the premise is that Perez had to be a big going-away type winner in the first round to make that 10-9. I agree with you. That wasn't the case.
So far, what Gamboa is doing, first of all, he has to win against an undefeated, as we mentioned, undefeated fighter with a good amateur pedigree and punching power and boxing skill. But if he does what he's doing so far and sweeps the scorecards more or less and wins on points, that's not the kind of performance that gets people buzzing in the business. If he does this and increases his dominance round over round, which may be happening, and ends the fight in a knockout in the next several rounds, that makes a big difference.
Hard right hand by Gamboa. He landed a clean chopping right hand earlier. Perez shook his head as if to say, no, I'm not bothered by that. This was a bigger shot, followed by that attempt by Gamboa to score the knockdown. Referee's ruling it a slip. But Gamboa has gotten the better of Darleys Perez here early in round 4.
And I think Darleys was also upset that he was hit while he was down.
Well, Perez is hurt right now, but this is Gamboa's danger zone, like you mentioned earlier, Max. When he's got his opponent hurt, he tends to leave himself open, but he looks like he's trying to be more mindful.
Particularly when his opponent's back is against the ropes, and right now they're in the middle of the ring. maybe better for Gamboa.
Perez took a shot right there, Gamboa, with that uppercut.
Classic case of what Andre is talking about and what Max mentioned earlier happened in Gamboa's last fight on the undercard of Pacquiao Marquez 4 in Vegas last December 8th. He was knocked down in the 9th round by Michael Perenas at a moment when he thought he was about to knock Perenas out, dropped his hands, got careful, got hit or got careless, got hit with a straight left hand.
See, Gamboa has a strange thing going on in his career. He's got the amateur background. He's got all the amateur fights. He's a guy with a lot of tools in the toolbox and doesn't know which tool to always pull and use at a particular time, and that's what he's got to work on.
The anti-Andre Ward in that way, where he has all the tools of a complete fighter but gets caught in transition in between, as opposed to using them all seamlessly.
Absolutely.
And there's a look at Chad Dawson as he warms up in his dressing room. Yesterday, there was a minor skirmish at the weigh-in between Dawson and Adonis Stevenson. Dawson, of course, weighing in at 175, 9 months after he went down to 168 to fight Andre Ward. Looked terrific, incidentally. Stevenson fighting in his hometown before home fans, quite relaxed. And then when they got together for the stare down, Stevenson closed the space and crowded Dawson a little bit. And eventually Dawson decided Stevenson was pushing him too hard and pushed back. And they had a little bit of a set-to at the weigh-in. Any emotional fallout from that as you come into the fight, Andre, or have they both forgotten it by now?
No fallout. Just part of the game, pre-fight hype, and some say that's what the fans want to see. So that's what it's all about.
Power shots in round 4. Gamboa landed 20 of 38, 53%. Had a very big round. Perez was 3 of 13.
Dawson's instincts were good there, Jim. Stevenson got too close to his body, and that's not what Dawson wants to let happen in this fight.
Good left hook by Perez as Gamboa was coming in.
Stevenson's punch to watch is going to be that right hook to the body.
Perez has landed a few solid shots here in the first half of the fight against Gamboa. Gamboa's taken him pretty well. He's always looking for a chance to throw back as soon as it happens.
Yeah, Perez, in order to catch Gamboa, who's the faster, good shot right there, faster of foot and faster of hand, he's going to have to catch Gamboa coming in like that. Because the speed difference is apparent.
What do you think?
Go ahead.
What do you think about that style, Andre, where we saw it with Roy Jones, we see it with some exceptionally gifted, physically gifted fighters where they tap with the jab. They don't really open you up with it. They just use it as a range finder for their crooked punches.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, it probably all depends on how Gamboa is trained. And when you got the kind of heavy artillery that he has with both hands, I think it's a good strategy.
The left hook lands for Darleys Perez.
I wonder, though, if that strategy in the quieter moments doesn't allow Gamboa to open up offensively as much as if he threw a more meaningful jab.
That may be the case, but he's not a Joe Frazier type of guy. And if you look at him, good combo from Perez right there. He's normally shorter than his opponents, and he's normally the shorter armed opponent. So being that he's not an inside guy, he normally likes to be mid-range or outside. That's kind of his rhythm, and that's what he goes with.
Perez landed a 4-punch combination, 2 to the body and a left and a right upstairs. Might have been his best moment of the fight so far, but again, Gamboa is throwing many more punches and landing more because of the difference in hand speed, which is marked.
Right, the Cyclone of Guantanamo, I mean, that was the guy who was streaking up through the professional ranks early in his career and exciting everyone, and you see flashes of it here as he fights more world-class fighters, but you don't see it as consistently.
In those days, he was walking in with his hands down. He's not quite that arrogant anymore.
No, he's been disciplined by the pro game, by what's come back at him.
Still a very confident fighter, though.
See, now here he is in a fight with a solid guy, undefeated fighter.
And the crowd wants more action.
Won every round, scored a knockdown, and you hear boos.
June 29, it's a Boxing After Dark triple header featuring a highly anticipated middleweight matchup between Gennady Golovkin and Matthew Macklin. For more on the 160-pound titleist from Kazakhstan, stick around after tonight's live boxing for 2 days. Gennady Golovkin.
He's gonna come in. He's gonna come in with those crossing shots, bit lower. Remember, in and out, or you move to the lateral. When you move to the laterals, you guard up. If he comes with the left, so you can throw the uppercut. If he comes with the right, then you cross him with the left. When you attack the counter attack, one up top and finish up top. But you've got to be in the range because then he leaves.
CompuBox numbers in round 5. For the first time in the fight, Perez lands more punches than Gamboa. Gamboa was 6 of 52, Perez 9 of 27. First time in the fight that Perez has landed more, and of course, the big building block toward that was the 4-punch combination in the middle of the round, which again might have been Perez's best moment in the fight so far. Steve Weisfeld, our unofficial ringside scorer, gives the round to Darleys Perez.
And I wonder if Gamboa, this may sound funny, but if he even has a game plan going in. He didn't talk much game plan or strategy in the fighter meeting yesterday. Or does he just go in there and just thinks that he's going to land a big shot and the fight's going to be over? Because you see him kind of lose interest midway through the fight, almost like, okay, you're not getting knocked out, you haven't gone anywhere, so I'm just, kind of just going through the motions here.
I always thought of him as a potential Pacquiao opponent a couple years ago, and I think he needs to fight in a way that makes people want to see him fight a guy like Pacquiao. And that said, he's fighting a good fight so far, just not a scintillating one.
Yeah, and every fight's not going to be that fight, but you just want to see Gamboa improving fight by fight. That's the key.
How big is the value of having a game plan, Andre? I mean, isn't there something to be said when a fighter has as much natural talent as Yuriorkis Gamboa for just letting it flow?
Yeah, I mean, with all the talent that he has, he keeps getting touched with that hook on the way out. He's got to keep his right hand up. With all the talent that Gamboa has, it's easy to get in the lull of just kind of winging it and just seeing what happens. But I think at this level, and if he's going to improve, he needs to learn to have a game plan and then work on implementing it in the fight.
Perez is landing that left hook fairly consistently, but he hasn't really hurt Gamboa with it. Is there a way for him to step forward earlier and get more power on the shot?
Absolutely, but Perez has to be willing to take those chances and walk through the power of Gamboa to do it. And I don't know if he's willing to do that.
Now, all this said, Gamboa is 31 years old right now, and maybe this is just the level he's going to be at. Is this an attraction? Is this enough to make boxing fans want to see him in against the big names? I think it may be barely.
I think he got touched with that left hook a little bit that maybe shook him up.
Came back with a right hand. Always wants to answer back when he gets touched hard with the left hook.
Which is the sign of a good fighter.
Might give Darleys Perez more chances. Perez could find a way to make a right hand go with the success he's having with the left. That could change things here. And you saw Perez pointing to his head after his head and Gamboa's came together momentarily.
Perez is, over the last 2 rounds, landing more of his heavy artillery.
Well, if Perez won that round, he's got something to work with. Otherwise, he's down 5 rounds to 1 on Steve Weisfeld's unofficial scorecard.
Remember, like I told you, with your hands up, don't bring that hand down. You saw that when you're coming in, cover yourself up and move your head. You've got him crazy. He's desperate now. And the people are booing. But forget about it. That's not your problem. He's got the pressure. Okay. Yuri, you got 3 punches, you throw only 2. 2 punches, you're punching in the air. Fake him, get your range. And hit him. Come on, you're throwing in the air. Throw him. Good shot. When you put it in, throw. And come on, he's escaping to the lateral.
Round 7 begins. Well, Steve Weisfeld, you heard me say if you scored that last round for Perez, he's got a little bit of a foundation to work with. Did you?
I did, Jim. I thought that Gamboa took off rounds 5 and most of 6. He clearly won round 4. He landed the more punches and the harder punches in round 4. So after 6 rounds, I have Gamboa up by 3 points.
Wider margin then would be the case because of the knockdown at the end of round 1. And remember, now that the scores are evening up just a little bit, and if Steve Weisfeld's card is in any way reflective of the official cards, that knockdown at the end of round 1 looms very big because Perez had won that round, or so it appeared, prior to the last second knockdown.
Yeah, that's true, Jim, but the good thing for Perez is it's still early. It's only the 7th round.
Long way to go.
And this is when championship fights get interesting on the other side of 6.
I was fascinated that Perez's trainer, Orlando Pineda, chose to mention to him that the crowd is booing. He didn't sell the tickets. He didn't get the television hookup. That's all about Gamboa.
Yeah, and
I agree with you, Jim. I thought that was very good advice in Perez's corner. The pressure's on Gamboa. He's the one more likely to get sloppy as a result of boos. Perez, as I mentioned, hasn't just touched Gamboa here and there in the last 2 rounds. He's increasingly landing his heavy artillery.
Yeah, he's timing Gamboa now, which could be dangerous for Gamboa. As Jim mentioned earlier, he can put his weight and put his power behind a timed shot.
Gamboa just got caught holding Perez back of his head with his left hand and whacking him 4 times with the right hand.
Yeah, but I think Andre just touched on the key point, at least for Perez. If he can turn that left hook from an arm punch into a real power punch, he's got something. Hasn't quite happened yet.
Perez being the taller fighter, if he can keep that jab going to the head and to the body, he can set those shots up a lot easier. Just like he's trying to do right now.
If he can develop the timing to beat Gamboa to the punch some of the time and begin some of the exchanges, that could change the tempo of the fight.
There he is jabbing downstairs like you wanted to see, Andre. Perez, that is. Throwing the hook to the chest at times.
And as I mentioned earlier, I just don't see a game plan from Gamboa. The skill is there, the talent is there, the potential is there. But where's the game plan? What did you come into this fight trying to accomplish other than a victory? How are you going to get to that victory? Is it working the body, then the head? What is it?
Momentary switch to southpaw by Gamboa.
To date, Gamboa's strategy has been, I'm better than the other guy, and I don't have to do anything differently from fight to fight.
There you have it.
That was kind of a nothing round. Not that easy to score.
How you feeling? You feeling good? Feeling good conditioning? Yes.
Tienes que estar más vivo, ¿viste?
You gotta be more lively now,
Cuando se te venga,
When he comes in, 2 steps.
paso, pero no abras las manos.
2 steps, but don't open up your hand. Always with your guard up and jabbing.
Y una cosa, está abusando mucho
And
del
one thing,
picado ese.
he's using that cross shot a lot.
Acompáñalo con
Or you're using too much of that cross shot.
torsión de tronco.
Combine it with the torsion of the trunk. Twist your trunk. Twist your body, understand? Get your distance.
Trabaja la distancia, no te la acerques mucho, aprovecha la larga distancia.
Cambivat's numbers on jabs in the 6th round. Gamboa only 3 of 29. He's been short with his jab most of the time. Perez, 7 of 18. Longer arms, steps forward a little bit more aggressively sometimes, lands his jab more frequently.
These are the kind of fights where Gamboa has to go from being a good fighter with potential to an elite fighter. And that difference is making adjustments during the course of a fight.
Should he go on to win this fight, I think the only way Gamboa is going to demonstrate that he's an elite fighter is against other elite fighters, if he gets those fights and wins them. Because this has been his MO on the world-class level throughout the last several years of his career.
Well, the 135-pound fighter who in the last year emerged to define himself as an elite fighter, Adrian Broner, has moved up all the way to 147. So now Gamboa has to look around to find other name opposition in the 135-pound weight class. There's an emerging star named Terrence Crawford. He's not quite there yet, but you'll see him on the undercard next week in Dallas.
Well, Broner has also been able to make fans believe he's an elite fighter without fighting any other elite fighters. There's just something about the way he's won his fights that has fans interested. And with Gamboa, it always seems to be just almost there, but not quite.
At least one prominent pound-for-pound list already has Broner high up in the top 10. Others are taking more of a wait-and-see look. Gamboa was once ranked well up in the pound-for-pound rankings and has slipped in the last couple of years. Mostly because of inactivity. You can't rank what you can't see.
And when you rise in weight class, people need to see you beat fighters of quality in those higher weight classes.
It's the first time that Gamboa is fighting a real 135-pounder at this level. We're seeing Perez take the shots of Gamboa pretty well, even though Gamboa hurt him early in the fight.
And Perez has some quality you can see, but he doesn't exactly have a resume that screams world-class fighter in terms of who he's beaten.
Yeah, this is Perez's biggest step up, and so far, even though he's not winning, I think he's showing himself well.
Perez getting more and more confident, it seems to me, with each passing round.
Yes, he is.
Inviting Gamboa to come in. Doing a better job of timing Gamboa's assaults. And touching Gamboa with his gloves fairly frequently. The challenger for Chad Dawson's light heavyweight championship tonight is Adonis Stevenson. We'll tell you the unusual story of his background when we prepare for the Dawson fight, and how it is that a guy who's 35 years old could have only 21 professional fights so far. Why did he turn pro at 29? All that yet to come for a guy who may be one of the biggest punchers in the sport, pound for pound, and somebody I love to watch fight because he starts off his power punching tempo to the body and makes certain that he has hurt you to the body before he comes upstairs.
Go,
Kambibop's numbers through the 8th round. Gamboa is averaging 11 of 59 punches per round. Perez 8 of 28. So fundamentally, if Gamboa is ahead on the scorecards, as we suspect he is, he's winning the fight on more activity.
Again. I need that towel.
This referee's name is Marlon B. Wright. He's from here in Canada.
Marlon B. Wright to wipe down the middle of the ring, but if there weren't those painted signs, he wouldn't have to.
I don't like the painted signs, Max.
As soon as that started up, all those fighters started slipping in these great exchanges in the middle of the ring.
No good.
Good right hand by Perez. Countering a Gamboa left.
Perez making up. Good time right there.
Another good right hand by Perez.
He's making up Perez for the speed disadvantage by great timing in the exchanges with Gamboa.
Andre, what was it earlier in the fight when Gamboa in that one round was able to really step around and open up and land those sizzling combinations that hasn't been there for him since then?
I think part of it is Perez and part of it is Gamboa. Perez is withstanding Gamboa and fighting back, but it's almost like Gamboa is his own worst enemy sometimes mentally, where, like I said, he loses focus and loses interest. So therefore, he loses his rhythm.
He should be interested now because he keeps getting hit in the face.
Perez doing a nice job right now.
Hard right hand by Perez. And the second one. He's watched the 96-mile-an-hour fastball long enough now to start to be able to get around on it.
He's timing it. That's a good way to put it.
Now he's putting both punches together. No longer single shots, but 2s and 3s.
And maybe, Jim, that answers my question. Gamboa's fastball is hard to deal with early, but if he can start to time it, he's got to come up with a breaking pitch and an out pitch. He gets him to 2 strikes. Got to get him out.
Yuriorkis Gamboa's brother with a look of some concern on his face.
Going to go out on a limb and say there'll be no booing for Golovkin and Macklin, Jim.
There'll be no what?
Booing for Golovkin and Macklin.
Hard to imagine that. That should be a very crowd-pleasing fight at Foxwoods on the 29th.
You're throwing yourself in. Don't throw yourself in. You see, he's jabbing you to try to counter.
Round 10 begins. Final quarter of the fight. Let's see how Steve Weisfeld, our unofficial ringside scorer, has it through 9.
Jim, I have it 87-83 Gamboa. I thought Gamboa was slightly more accurate and busier in round 7 and 8. I thought Perez landed the bigger shots in round 9, so I gave him the round. So after 9 rounds, I have Gamboa up by 4 points with 3 rounds to go.
You think it's at least conceivable, Steve, that a judge could have seen 7 and 8 for Perez, in which case, if the rest of the card were identical, it would be an even fight?
I agree, it is conceivable. They were very close rounds, Jim.
Thank you. So now 2:21 to go in the 10th of what may conceivably be a close fight, or a fight in which Yuriorkis Gamboa may still have a functional working margin on the scorecards. But Darleys Perez has gotten more and more comfortable as the fight has gone on, and as Andre Ward has pointed out, very accurately timing Gamboa's shots more and more effectively from round to round, so that he's finally been able to put some power on both the left hook and the right cross when he lands it.
Perez at this stage in the fight constantly has Gamboa on his back foot, countering as Perez is leading and stalking Gamboa. Good power jab to the stomach from Perez and back to the head.
Perez has jabbed to the belly, to the chest, and to the head, mixing it up.
As a lightweight, Gamboa is going to usually be the shorter-armed fighter. And he's going to have to figure out a way to use those physical, fast twitch advantages, the speed and the punching power. To figure out a way to deliver that and really take advantage of it. Not just pot-shotting from long range, it seems to me.
But again, I think that goes back to the amateur style, where this is the system that he grew up in. He ate, slept, and drank amateur scoring, where you touch, you get out, you win the fight for 4 2-minute rounds, and it's just not the case in the pro game.
I've seen nothing in this fight, guys, to indicate to me that Yuriorkis Gamboa still deserves the identity of budding superstar. To me, he is a confused fighter in search of his real ring identity, and he's having trouble finding it.
Yeah, he's struggling right now mentally, but I wouldn't write him off just yet. Gamboa has the goods, and like Max mentioned earlier, you don't really know who he is until he fights the elite guy, and to his credit, he hasn't had that opportunity yet.
Right, I mean, the alternative, Jim, to being a confused fighter without an identity is this is who we will be dealing with. He's 31 years old. He has the deep amateur background. Beaten Orlando Salido. Might win tonight, though the fight is tightening.
Still has amazing hand speed.
Amazing hand speed, good punching power, and
good foot speed.
Basically a pot-shotting type fighter.
Right.
May need to be tested by another elite fighter to bring everything out all at once in him.
Maybe I'm being too scathingly critical, but
well, you're no more critical than this crowd.
I'm just like him. I'm frustrated with the level of opposition. All right, next Saturday night, it's a big HBO doubleheader. First, it's the HBO premiere of the feature film, The Dark Knight Rises, immediately followed by live boxing. As 126-pound champ Mikey Garcia, one of the sport's best young fighters, takes on former titleist Juan Manuel Lopez.
Ya está quedado. ¿Te viste? Dame. Él está quedado.
He's there. He's got nothing left for you.
Él está quedado.
He's got nothing left. You got to use your combinations. Don't stay there. Hit and out. And when you go out, come out with the defense up. Don't come out with your hands down. In and hit. Hit, hit, hit. 11.
It's worth noting our unofficial ringside scorer, Steve Weisfeld, gave the 10th round to Perez, which now narrows the Weisfeld scorecard to a 3-point margin. And once again, I make the point that 7 and 8 were highly questionable rounds, which could have gone either way.
So let's split them and say it's a 2-point fight, most likely.
Good thinking. Maybe it's just that Gamboa needs the best kind of opposition to rise to the occasion, as he did when he won the Olympic gold medal in 2004.
Yeah, Gamboa's got the goods for sure. I mean, for some fighters, they just fight down to the level of their competition, and that's not taking anything from Perez because he's in this fight and he very well could win this fight. But I'm talking more of the elite, bigger names at this stage in Gamboa's career. And again, to his credit, he's been calling for those guys for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, we saw it featherweight. Rogers Mtagwa, who gave Juan Manuel Lopez life and death in a distance fight, was no match for Gamboa, blew him out in 2 rounds. Orlando Salido, a very good fighter. Gamboa beat with his hands down on points.
Could have fought Brandon Rios, elected not to do so. How would you have handicapped that fight, Max?
That would have been a tough fight for Gamboa at that moment. Rios, at that time, was a very strong, young, undefeated fighter, and Gamboa had never fought at lightweight.
That looked like a knockdown to me on a perfect left-hand shot by Darleys Perez, and the referee is ruling it a slip. I'd like to see a replay of that.
We got to see the replay on that one.
That certainly appeared to be a knockdown on a perfect left-hand counter shot.
Yep, and probably aided by the wet sign in the middle of the ring.
It's
that
quite
the ref
possible.
Wiped down earlier.
And maybe that's why Perez isn't protesting the ruling.
Still, you're right, Jim. If he lands the shot and Gamboa goes down, that should be a knockdown.
Unless their feet were tangled up in some way that we didn't see.
That's a dangerous game to lean straight back when you're 5'5".
Don't pick him up. Come on, okay, come on. Come on.
But that's Gamboa's game.
Okay, let's go, let's go. Come on, box.
Like it or not, that's his game.
Something big. Gamboa still has enough movement and speed to prevent that.
Time.
That moment, Jim, is where Gamboa gets exciting because he could be hurt, but it's also when his offense comes alive. There, the bell sounded.
Last one. Last one. It's the last one. It's the last one, Yuri.
Okay, listen. Tell him to cut this out. Don't pick up the fight. All right,
Spit it out that way. Right there. He's going to throw 3 or 4 punches. You got to block those punches. When he throws, you got to throw the body.
Here's where we see the perceived knockdown last round, but I think clearly we see the left foot of Gamboa slip on the signage in the ring that we talked about earlier, but I also think Perez landed a shot, but I don't know if it was hard enough to knock him down. It's a tough call.
Second replay looked like a knockdown to me. First one maybe not. Steve Weisfeld, you are the man who rules on situations like that for us. What did you think?
It looked like it was a knockdown to me. It looked like he walked into the jab. It doesn't matter how hard the punch was. He got hit with the punch and he went down.
Yeah, but if you see the left foot, you see Gamboa also slip, so I think it's up to the discretion of the referee.
It is, but would the left foot slip without getting punched in the face with that force?
That's
and
the
if
call
it did
that needs
slip,
to be made.
did he go down? Would he have gone down? I think that's a knockdown.
Bottom line is we've got round 12 of the scheduled 12. It was not scored a knockdown. Steve Weisfeld scored the round for Gamboa on his unofficial scorecard. That widens the margin for Gamboa there and makes him seem just a little bit safer in the fight.
And these are the quirks of boxing scoring. That, to me, looked at least as much a knockdown as Gamboa's knockdown earlier, which was also not a super clean, wow, he went down from the punch kind of knockdown.
Right. I think this was more of a clean knockdown, quite frankly. But it's Gamboa who got credit for a knockdown here tonight at the end of round 1, and Darleys Perez has not.
Which could be the difference in this fight.
That could be up to a 4-point swing.
It'll be fascinating to hear these cards if, in fact, the fight goes the distance, and we're 1 minute 45 seconds away. Crowd has had plenty of opportunity to save their breath and their shouting for Adonis Stevenson when he comes to the ring in the next fight.
Canadians are known for being polite and not being too polite right now.
Unless something dramatic happens, it does look as though Gamboa is on his way to another win. And in terms of getting big fights usually happen when the dust settles between fighters standing in the winner's bracket. And Gamboa, so far in his professional career, has always been standing in the winner's bracket.
Gamboa doesn't look interested in closing the show with a bang. He kind of looks like he feels like he's up and he wants to pick and poke to a victory.
I wouldn't mind seeing Darleys Perez again, even if he loses the fight. I wouldn't mind seeing him against Terrence Crawford if Crawford wins next week. I think it'd be an interesting matchup.
20 seconds left, and Gamboa has an undeterred lightweight in front of him. Not really respecting Gamboa's power to the point where he's not, bulling his way forward late in the fight. Won some rounds.
So the bell sounds, the fight comes to a finish. The crowd lets out a small torrent of boos. Not a thunderous torrent of boos. A lot of them are just waiting and watching and ready for the main event. And we're going to take a look. First of all, we invite you to text in your answer to who you think won the fight. There's the number to text, and give us a G for Gamboa or a P for Perez. In a moment, we'll give you results according to what you're giving us on who won the fight. And we want to take a look at both Gamboa's knockdown of Perez at the end of round 1, and then Perez's non-knockdown of Gamboa in the 11th round. The rulings may be instrumental in the ultimate scorecards here. Caught a glimpse of 50 Cent in Yuriorkis Gamboa's corner, rubbing his hands as he awaits the decision. Final Steve Weisfeld card. Gamboa a 115-112 winner there. Steve, who are the three official judges scoring the fight?
The three judges are Richard de Carafel. He's an ex-police officer who has been a professional judge for 17 years. I thought he did a nice job with Bradley Holt, which also took place here at the Bell Center. The second judge is Pasquale Procopio. He was an amateur champ in Canada, and then he was a pro boxer in the 1980s. He's been a pro judge for 15 years. And the third judge is Cesar Ramos. He's from Puerto Rico. He's been a pro judge for 40 years. He's well respected. However, I did disagree with his score in the Salido-Lopez rematch. I had Salido ahead of Lopez at the time of the stoppage.
Well, over the course of 40 years, I guess you're going to incur some disagreements. Now, let's take a look at the two critical replays. At the end of round one, a round that Perez may have been winning up to that point. Gamboa cuffing him around the head and making contact at the top of the head with a little left hook, and Perez went down. That was a knockdown for Gamboa. Then in the 11th round, they're in the middle of the ring on a painted sign that may have been wet. You saw Perez land, it appeared, the clean counterpunch with the left hand. Their feet were somewhat tangled up. Gamboa went down. The referee ruled it a slip and not a knockdown.
It's a 4-point swing, Jim.
Advantage Gamboa. Let's go to Michael Buffer for the official scores in the fight.
Go to the scorecards. Richard de Carafel scores at 116-111. Same score from Pasquale Procopio, 116-111. And Cesar Ramos, 115-112. All three to the winner by unanimous decision. He is now the interim champion, El Ciclón de Guantánamo, Yuriorkis Gamboa.
Crowd expresses their appreciation for Gamboa's unanimous decision win over Darleys Perez. We'll take a look at CompuBox numbers. And once again, we come back to the point of activity. Gamboa landing 16 more punches in the fight total. Why did he land 16 more punches? Because he threw 348 more punches in the fight. Nearly twice as many as Perez threw. Perez landed 31% of his. Gamboa was down at 18%. That percentage dragged down by a 9% level of jab landing, 41 out of 462. And Perez, as you can see, was far more effective with his jab, at least in terms of getting the leather onto the chin of the opponent. Many of those were body shot jabs, I should point out, by Perez. Power shots, Gamboa landed more and threw more, and they landed at a similar connect percentage. And at the end of the day, again, it was the activity level, throwing 448 more punches in the fight, that won it for Gamboa.